Welcome back to Legacy Labs. Today we're talking about something that I call the representation gap. The basic idea is this: representation is not only about visibility. Visibility means something can be seen. Recognition means that the system knows how to read it correctly. And those aren't the same thing. A person, culture, audience, product, behavior, or a pattern can exist in plain sight and still be misread because the receiving system does not know how to process it yet. That's the representation gap. It appears when reality is present, but recognition arrives late. So the surface problem. A lot of people talk about representation as if the main problem is absence. Like the issue is we need more of this. We need to see more of this. And sometimes that's true. Visibility is definitely important. It definitely matters, but visibility is only the first layer. The deeper issue is whether people know what they're seeing when it actually appears. Because something can be visible and still not be legible. It can be right in front of people and they can still process it as unusual, surprising, or confusing or exceptional. And that's the gap. The thing exists, the system just doesn't know how to recognize it yet. So the core reframe. So visibility asks, can this be seen? Recognition asks, can this be understood correctly? Representation asks, has the system been trained to recognize this reality without surprise? And that last part matters because surprise is often treated like proof that something is rare, but sometimes surprise is just evidence that the recognition system is outdated. Reality was already there. The map that's being used to read it is just incomplete. So the structural break. The structural break is not just absence, it's delayed legibility. Reality exists, the person exists, the culture exists, the audience exists, the behavior exists, the product category exists, the pattern exists. But the system trying to interpret it is using old categories. So the recognition slows down. People hesitate, they misread, they ask surprise questions, they treat something normal like an exception. And from a narrative architecture view, that delay is useful because the misread reveals the map. So the Miami recognition system. So let's use this example from the article, and I'll link the article in the description. So in Miami, I was talking to two men that I see in my neighborhood. One's Cuban and one is Black American, and they both misread me, just through different pathways. So the Cuban man heard my English and assumed that I probably didn't speak Spanish fluently, and the Black American man saw me through a different category map and also assumed I probably didn't speak Spanish fluently. Two different recognition systems, same delayed recognition, but the reality was already there. Black, Dominican, American born, Spanish speaking, no English accent, Dominican cadence in Spanish. The issue is not my identity. The issue is that the full combination exceeded the available category map. And that's the representation gap. Recognition arrived late because the system processing the input was incomplete. So the outdated recognition structure. So outdated recognition infrastructure. So recognition systems are trained. People don't interpret reality just out of nowhere. They interpret it through category maps that are built by media, education, family language, public stories, institutions, algorithms, platforms, and repeated cultural exposure. And over time, those systems teach people what to expect when it comes to certain identities, cultures, products, and behaviors. So when reality doesn't match that expected pattern, people they experience surprise. Oh, you speak Spanish. Oh, you're Dominican. Oh, I didn't expect that. Those moments aren't just social awkward moments. They're diagnostic. They reveal what the system thought was likely, unlikely, normal, or impossible. The surprise is evidence, and this shows up. This shows up across domains, and that's why this is important. The representation gap is not only an identity concept; it shows up everywhere. It shows up in branding. A company may solve a real problem, but the market doesn't have the language for the category yet. So people see the offer and they don't know where to place it though. They don't know what the company does. In content, a creator they could have a real audience, but the platforms and viewers don't know how to classify your work. So the creator gets engagement without stable recognition. In education, a student may have a real learning disability, but the school system misreads it because there's no existing model. So the student gets labeled before the structure gets understood. In AI, a model may generate fluid output and still fail to recognize the meaning layer it's supposed to preserve. So the output looks correct, but the deeper reality is misread. In institutions, a real community may exist for years before a system has a category, budget, policy, or language to process it. So language becomes visible long before it becomes legible. And that's the pattern. Reality exists before recognition. So this is the narrative architecture read. So from a narrative architecture perspective, we start with the pulse. So the pulse is, what is reality trying to carry forward before it's recognized? In the identity example from earlier, the pulse is a lived combination of Black, Dominican, American born, Spanish speaking. The identity is coherent. The recognition system is what lags behind. Pressure. What tests the recognition system? Language, appearance, accent, nationality, race, assumptions about who belongs in which category. Pressure appears when reality does not match the expected pattern. That is when the system hesitates. Inheritance. So what inheritance is what the system carries. What does the recognition system already carry? So media images, school categories, family assumptions, old racial scripts, old national stories, platform categories, institutional language. People do not misread randomly; they misread through inherited maps, motifs. So that's what keeps repeating. The surprise question, the delayed recognition, the phrase "Oh, I didn't expect that." The repeated surprise itself becomes the motif. It tells you the same gap is showing up over and over again. And then memory. What does the public imagination remember, forget, distort, or fail to integrate? Maybe it's a reminder, Latinidad one way, or maybe it remembers Latinidad one way, and maybe it remembers blackness another way. Maybe it doesn't hold enough examples of Black, Spanish speaking Dominican Americans to process the reality quickly. Uh, that is a memory issue. And rhythm. So the rhythm is how the recognition moves. So visibility, surprise, correction, adjustment, delayed acceptance. Then maybe with enough repetition, smoother recognition later. That rhythm tells us representation is not only about appearing once; it's about training recognition over time. So the diagnostic ends up being this: the issue is not that reality is absent. The issue is that the recognition system has not been trained to process it smoothly. So the better question. So with narrative architecture, we always ask different questions. So instead of asking, does this exist? Ask, why does the system still struggle to recognize it? What category map is being used? What combination exceeds the old model? Where does surprise appear? What assumptions produce the misread? What reality is being treated like an exception? What would have to repeat for recognition to become smooth? And what system needs to be updated? Those questions are stronger because they move the conversation from visibility to infrastructure. The goal is not only to prove that something exists. The goal is to understand why the system keeps misreading what is already present. So the strategy shift. The strategy shift is simple. So we're going to stop treating representation as a visibility issue alone, and we're going to start treating representation as a recognition infrastructure. Name the reality already present, identify the outdated category map, track the moments of surprise, repeat the reality until recognition becomes easier, and that is what representation does structurally. It updates the public imagination. It teaches people, platforms, markets, institutions, and systems how to read reality more accurately. Representation doesn't only make reality visible. Representation trains systems to recognize reality correctly. So this framework, I actually wrote about it in the Legacy Labs cultural memory section. So it's a paid article. It goes really in depth with the representation gap and how to spot it, diagnose it, and fix it. So I will link this in the description. I really just wanted to get this one out just because the representation gap is something that is not just an identity issue. It's everywhere. We see this in branding, AI, education, relationships. So yeah. So I just want to leave you guys with that. If you guys have any questions or want to do a diagnostic on your own brand, business, organization, education, relationship, anything like that, definitely feel free to reach out. And yeah, hope you guys have a great day, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care.